Managing Lake Macquarie's environmental needs is a delicate balancing act. There's the Southern Hemisphere's largest coastal saltwater lake, extensive tracts of bushland and 190,000 people living in the area. According to a comprehensive new report, residents and their council have done well over the past 4 years.
It's in a good condition. Council's got a lot of programs and policies in place to help protect the environment.
But with 14,000 people forecast to move into the area over the next 15 years, the natural draw cards are under pressure.
Lake Macquarie is one of the fastest growing local government areas on the New South Wales coast, so the demand for residential development and industry and commercial centres is all affecting the environment in the city.
There are already early indications of growing pains, like native vegetation disappearing at a rate of 261 hectares per year, and wetlands and creeks near urban development are showing signs of stress, although it hasn't yet affected the lake.
Everything that we do in our catchments affects our lake and the coastline, so it's very important that the residents of the city realise that what they do in their own backyard affects the lake and the catchment.
The need to improve public transport is also highlighted, with increasing private vehicle numbers driving up greenhouse emissions and pollution going into the atmosphere. Gary Blair, NBN News.
You couldn't tell, but many of the Knights' backs, including Matt and Kirk Gidley, Steve Witt and Anthony Quinn, returned from holiday today, an extended holiday in fact. After leading the way in fitness and body fat tests, they were rewarded with an extra 2 days off for Christmas. For winger Quinn, a painful past has been ample motivation to reach peak fitness levels this pre-season.
Last 2 years I got injured in the first game, so hopefully this year I can play the first 8, which is what I'm aiming for.
Keeping busy promoting Newcastle's Aid for Asia concert today, Robbie O'Davis has been told he won't be required for any pro bono work at the Knights. Willing to play for free, the NRL veteran is still hoping to get a run with Newcastle this season, despite the club making no invitation. However, the live wire fullback has been asked to play at a Coffs Harbour Sevens tournament in the Russell Crowe Invitational side. Meantime, Denny Badiris could have an even later start to the season than first thought. The Test rake will see a specialist on Monday and possibly have an operation on his injured foot Tuesday. It's believed the Dally M medal winner may be out for up to 6 competition matches. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
And the founding family of Denman's Rosemount Estate has ended a 35-year involvement with the wine industry. Bob and Sandy Oakley today resigned as directors of wine conglomerate South Corp and sold their shares to beverage giant Foster's for $584 million. An announcement is expected next week on the future of both companies' wine interests. The deal could see Hunter Labels, Rosemount, Lindemans and Rothbury Estate owned by the same company. Meanwhile, shares in McGuigan Simeon Wines jumped 24 cents today on the back of the Oakley announcement.
They were perfect conditions for bushfires, stifling heat and strong northeasterly winds, fanning the flames towards factories in the Tomago industrial area. While fire crews headed in towards the thick clouds of smoke, many workers headed home.
A little bit distraught. It's very close to work, so the first thing I done was rang the boss and said, I'm out of here for now, so because the wind direction's not a very good direction, so businesses could be in trouble.
The wind was working against the firefighters, blowing the fire into the path of 6 factories, including the Colex Waste Management Centre, which was under serious threat.
At the time, we've still got some problems with property protection. We've got several factory units that have been threatened, and we have one residence that was right in the path of the fire. But at this time we've got sufficient units here and they have steered the fire away from those properties.
Tomago Road was closed from the Pacific Highway due to the thick smoke making vision difficult for drivers. It's believed the fire started in bushland just north of Tomago and burned through several square kilometres of bush. The cause of the fire is still unknown. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Important things to remember when auditioning for the Knights cheer squad. Starting position. Make yourself stand out from the beginning. Flexibility. If you can bend your body more than most, show it. Got great hair? Then flick it, girl. And if you're having a great time, let your facial expressions go into overtime and show it, show it, show it. The girls trying out at Panthers last night were coordinated and they were confident, something you need to get past the scrutinising judges and your fierce competitors. From the record 85 trying out, only 30 will be selected. No doubt there'll be some anxious girls waiting by the phone next week. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
On hot days when everyone in Madawi is running their air conditioning, this portable generator is now the only thing preventing a blackout.
I must stress it's certainly a temporary measure. It will assist the network on those really extreme hot days if required. I don't expect that it'll run very often, but better safe position than not.
The high-voltage generator replaces two smaller ones that have been trucked into the town every time the temperature soars and demand for power outstrips supply. It's a situation local businesses have been forced to put up with.
Certainly no good for business. No, we've lost a lot of business because of the electric supply being so bad.
At the bottle shop, a blackout means no cold beer and no FPOS.
They've been more regular this year. There's a lot more new housing developments and I don't think the power can supply it all. But since they've started to put some generators in for us, that's helped us out big time.
New estates like this are placing more pressure on the system. In Port Stephens alone, Energy Australia is spending $35 million upgrading the supply.
By April, we'll have a third feeder constructed to Madawi, and that'll increase the overall supply availability by 50%, and any problems should cease at that point.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Over the past 30 years, Kip McGrath and his wife Doug have built an empire of education centres that now boasts 500 franchises in 15 countries. For much of that time, they've lived in this Victorian terrace on the hill in Church Street, which is now up for sale. But whoever buys the three-storey mansion will also receive a classy set of wheels thrown in for nicks.
I'm including the Rolls-Royce in the sale. It's lived here ever since I've had it, so it seems appropriate that the car stay with the house.
Kip now has a new car, but is so sentimental about his 1968 Silver Shadow that he wants to ensure it goes to, or at least stays with, a good home.
But I just think whoever buys this house would love to have a Sunday Rolls-Royce as well.
It's the first time that we've had a car that must be sold with the home. It's not an option. If you buy the home, you get the Rolls-Royce.
The house will be auctioned on the 5th of March, with bidding expected to start around $800,000. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's been a nervous wait for thousands of students across the country, including Rebecca Trelease from Victoria, today offered one of almost 6,000 main round placements at the University of Newcastle.
I'm really happy to be able to do what I want to do because it's always what I've wanted to be, a solicitor. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
She will become one of the country's first full fee paying students, forking out in excess of $100,000 for her degree. While government reforms will see most Australian universities increase their HECS fees, it's boosted main round offers in New South Wales and the ACT by 15% or 7,000. More than 1,300 offers have been made to University of Newcastle applicants on the Central Coast and in Port Macquarie. There are around 300 extra places up for grabs at Southern Cross University, while 1,910 offers have been made at the University of New England. For some, today's news wasn't so good, offered second, third and even their fourth preferences.
A little bit disappointed, but it's alright, I'm still in a uni, so I'll work my way around it and find the course that I wanted to get into.
Seeing what my options are, just to see if I can, if there are vacancies with full fee paying.
For those who have been lucky enough to secure a placing, there's now plenty of paperwork to wade through and more questions to be answered.
There is a little bit of confusion over the difference between a HECS or Commonwealth supported place and a full fee place. So we are spending a bit of time today just explaining to people what the difference is.
Colleen West, NBN News.
Testing at the best of times, Belmont can be downright cruel when the wind is strong, but for some internationals, today's breezy conditions were ideal.
The Scottish guys and English guys like it. Maybe the Americans, some of the other Europeans don't, but certainly the Australian guys are reasonably used to it.
Having played here in his younger days, the now Melbourne-based Rudy Bezuidenhout still calls Belmont home, even more so now, given he's just been made a citizen.
I'm Australian since last week, so hopefully this will be my day.
Even on this National Day of celebration, locals were given no concessions.
Well, we tried to get some rules in where we could allow them to kick out under trees today, but the English guys wouldn't allow it.
In what's a friendly competition between international and Australian amateurs, today's team's challenge is a warm-up event, but try telling the visitors.
We're into this today, it's fun. We've had a bunch of birdies already for the group, so I think we both had 32 on the front nine, so we're both 4 under.
With the pleasantries now exchanged, all players here today will again tee off tomorrow for the Lake Macquarie Amateur Championships, taking in 192 players. 37 of those hail from overseas. It's the biggest field of internationals ever for the tournament, tee-offs from 7 tomorrow morning.
I think it's important to let the state government know what the people think.
Newcastle's rich cultural diversity became an important focus of Australia Day celebrations after a racist campaign came under the spotlight last week. More than 100 people from 28 countries gathered on the foreshore, their common bond becoming an Australian citizen.
A few days ago, the Newcastle community made a statement, a positive statement about the way we embrace multiculturalism. That will be underpinned today, I'm sure.
And it wouldn't be Australia Day in Newcastle without the annual Across the Harbour swim. 170 people contested the social swim, Zoe Wenham finishing in first place, while in the open division, 24-year-old Josh Santa Catarina crossed the line well ahead of the rest for his third win in a row.
I turned around the cans over the other side and there weren't too many people behind me. I thought there was going to be people on my feet, but luckily for me there wasn't.
Hunter Surf Life Saving's major fundraising event, Ducks for Dollars, also attracted the crowds. Thousands of little yellow ducks bobbed down the harbour, raising $35,000. And in keeping with the patriotic theme, a special exhibition of historic flags opened to the public at the John Painter Gallery. Among the rare collection, Newcastle's entry for the Australian flag competition, designed in 1898.
There's nothing quite like a bloke's shed, and the whole idea of the Men's Shed project was about a bunch of old blokes with time on their hands, hoping to give something back to a younger generation whose idle time was turning to trouble in parts of Lake Macquarie where opportunity and employment can otherwise be hard to come by.
It's a practical sort of area. We want to help them. We show them how to build a boat or do welding or fix a lawnmower or whatever. And the young people can relate to the older people.
But in trying to secure the government grant money to build a shed at Wood Rising and at Windale, the fellas have been told to drop the gender reference in men's shed. In the interests of avoiding a costly legal battle, they look like going with just the shed.
See, it's Australia Day today, right? And Australian males need a shed, that's been said before. So, let's have it. Stop all the bull. Sorry.
Needing a quick clean after a night of celebration, you got the feeling the Country Cup may need a quick once-over again tomorrow morning. Winning the $12,000 final for the third time in 4 years, it was the club's shout. Rain delays caused troubles in the final, but Steve Hughes made up for lost time, hammering his way to 73 with some lusty hitting. Sharing a fruitful stand with Australian country rep Steve Mudford, who made 49, it was Hughes' innings that helped Hamwicks reach 196. Further delays complicated the run chase even further, but Neil Schofield wailed into the visitors' attack with some big shots of his own. He cracked 58 in the run chase to get the home side within reach. Hughes, though, was having an all-rounder's day, taking 2 wickets, while Sam Webber just missed a hat-trick as they tumbled. As runs dried up, so did Albion Park's chances. Hamwicks winning their third title in 4 years.
To answer the critics is always good. There's a few people that wrote us off, and it's always good to get a victory up.
It wasn't a good weekend for Hunter sides in the Premier League Lawn Bowls doubleheader, all beaten on day one. Yesterday got little better, Charlestown winning, but at the expense of Toronto, while Windale went down at home. Hosting Harbord, they couldn't stop the Sydney Siders, who rolled up a 24-shot win as Hunter teams remain mid-table after 4 rounds.
What was meant to be a relaxing day fishing turned horribly wrong this afternoon when 3 mates fell victim to the ocean's fury. The young men were making their way to a fishing spot at Fraser Park when one was hit by a wave and washed into the sea.
And it just washed me into the cave,
and once I was in the cave I couldn't get back out.
His friends attempted to save him but were also swept inside. A couple who noticed the boys in distress called 000 before throwing them a lifeline.
Yeah, got the safety buoy and threw it to them.
And threw it to them and they hung on to that for a while.
Two of the fishermen tried to swim out of the cave but were battered by massive waves before being winched to dry ground. And in what Westpac has described as one of its most dangerous operations, the third man was also rescued.
The idea of us was to get in there, hook him up with the strop and wait for a lull and then winch us out.
It follows a tragic weekend on the water. A 33-year-old Englishman died at Spoon Bay on the Central Coast on Saturday, trying to save children caught in a dangerous rip. Yesterday, a 48-year-old Newcastle man died when his dinghy capsized while crossing the Swansea Bar. And Wild Seas claimed another life earlier that day, a crewman of a coal ship suffering fatal head injuries when the bulk carrier he was travelling on was hit by rough seas. Colleen West, NBN News.
Due to the understaffing of their cancer treatment unit. There's currently 3 vacant positions and the union is concerned the hospital won't be filling those, allegedly because the oncology unit is over budget.
Our belief is that that will impact on the level of service, the availability of service to cancer patients within this region.
Cherie Burns wouldn't describe 2004 as a successful year, though it was anything but a waste of time. In her first year on the LPGA, the Port Stephens golfer failed to re-qualify for the US Tour, but she still has her playing card for the European Ladies Tour and now feels better equipped to attack that circuit.
Played last year out in America and just with the tough courses it's strengthened my game and given me confidence so I can compete with definitely all the girls out in Europe.
And this wouldn't hurt her confidence either, sinking long putts for a string of birdies at the Horizons course today. Before her European season starts in May, Cherie has a lucrative Australian program. On Friday, she travels to the far north coast for the Korakai Pro-Am, followed by 3 tournaments on the Gold Coast this month, including the Australian LPGA Ladies Masters at Royal Pines, an $800,000 event she knows well.
There was one year there I was 2 shots behind with 2 to go and so I know I can compete with the girls that are playing there and hopefully this year might walk away with some big prize money.
On the European Tour, Cherie will be hoping to qualify for the Masters and British Open tournaments. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
And then we take those hydrocarbons and convert them into simple things, hydrogen oxide or water and carbon dioxide.
The fact that Katie Bradstock is back up and running is triumph enough, considering she lay in hospital this time last year. A car accident that claimed the lives of her mother and that of a family friend left the 21-year-old with a range of serious injuries, and she's endured one tough road to recovery.
For me to get back here has been really trying. There's lots of physio, lots of ice, lots of weights, lots of stretching, so it's been a busy schedule.
Those dark times are now giving light to our return to top-flight netball with the Hunter Jaegers. An inspiration to many, there's no doubt, but this affable uni student simply wants to get on with things.
I just look at it as getting through again, and netball's been part of my life ever since I can remember, and there was no way I was going to give it up.
Great news too for the club in terms of sponsorship, with fast food giant McDonald's opting to sponsor the team for the next 3 years with a 6-figure deal. It's a major coup for the Hunter Jaegers, which in its second year has managed to do what many founding club sides are still trying to achieve: attract a naming rights sponsor. The Jaegers will hold another training camp next weekend with trial games later in the year. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Undergarments were made to be worn under other clothing.
It's the start of our trial period. We've got 3 weeks of trials, and it'll be a good indicator after all the training that we've done for where the players are in their fitness levels and skill levels and so forth.
The Knights players won't accept anything but a top 8 finish this season. Whatever happens on the field though, they'll no doubt be the NRL's most elite bike riding unit. A pre-season featuring plenty of cycling culminated today in a gruelling ride from Newcastle to Port Stephens. And they made good time, some covering the 50 kilometres in an hour and a half. It was the start of a 3-day program that will include camping, Ironman events, as well as building and paddling rafts in small groups.
I guess it's a bit of a survival weekend, and I guess just looking to see if they can work together and get through the activities that we've set for them.
For some, the 50-kilometre ride was as easy as falling off a bike. Skipper Andrew Johns finished with less skin than when he started. While it could have been more serious, Johns and the Knights will be happy if the only treatment on his knee this year is for a superficial wound. At this stage, Johns and the Knights look good for their 2 trial matches.
I think we're in pretty good shape to start the first trial next weekend and hopefully start the season in good shape.
Nursing an ankle injury, Denny Badira stayed well clear of the bikes today. The Knights are hoping to sign another contract with the New South Wales and Australian hooker next week that will see the 27-year-old finish his career in Newcastle. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
It was on Lake Macquarie, his home ground, so to speak, where Wanji sailor Nathan Outeridge sailed in what would be his last regatta for some time. After winning the National Laser Championships last month, Nathan was on his way to another competition in Melbourne when he was involved in a nasty car crash, suffering spinal injuries.
What they had to do was to rebuild the vertebrae with a titanium casing and then put a metal plate in there.
Now home, Nathan spent over 4 weeks in hospital, including his 19th birthday. The best present, though, was news his back will heal, paving the way for a comeback.
It should be strong enough if I strengthen all the muscles and just be careful with it. I should be able to get out there sailing again.
He expects to be back on the water within 6 months and competing within a year, a small price to pay for what's been a humbling experience.
Just hearing about how many other stories there were in the hospital, how many people who had less serious accidents than me and became paraplegics. It's like someone's definitely looking after me.
It's happening in ordinary suburban streets without warning. Residents of Fletcher, west of Newcastle, are living in fear because here the sky has started falling and it's been raining dead chickens. Lana Riley is the latest victim.
Let the cat out of the laundry door, and of course he went straight for it. Looking out of the door, and I could see this flat dead chook out on the side pavement.
The fowl landed on her roof on Tuesday afternoon, chipping a tile before sliding to the ground. And it's not an isolated case, it's the 3rd bird in 6 weeks.
One report was that it actually went through the roof into the roof cavity of the house. They are falling from a high enough height to actually break roof tiles.
These chickens must have been really flying to cause such damage. In fact, the piece of poultry would have been soaring at around 250 kilometres an hour when it hit the roof. You may wonder where they're coming from. One theory is pelicans are picking up rotten chickens from the nearby dump and dropping them when they become too heavy. But experts are crying foul play.
Something that involves slings are more likely, using things like bungee cords or things that have a great deal of elasticity, build up a good amount of stored energy, fire them that way.
Who or what is responsible for the falling unfeathered friends remains a mystery. But there is one person who has been, perhaps suspiciously quick, to claim innocence.
I can't explain it. I had no role in it.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News. The Hunter Street Mall hardly enjoys a clean image as it is, but after last night, it's looking decidedly scummier.
Well, we arrived this morning and it looked like a war zone.
Graffiti bandits attacked dozens of shop fronts along Hunter, King and Scott Streets. Almost every building was tagged. Staff reluctantly went about cleaning it off this morning. For many, it's a regular Saturday job that they're sick of doing.
Every weekend, Thursday nights, it's not very nice to be in here late at night. It's just, it's happening a lot.
The vandals, clearly unafraid of being caught, made their way from one end of the retail strip to the other. Shop owners and Councillor Aaron Buman say the council and police are not doing enough to deter graffiti.
I think it's going to get a lot worse and nothing seems to be being done. In fact, it seems to be just shrugged off.
Council's got a lot of strategies. I prefer action myself, and I think we need to get with the police and probably work a hell of a lot harder than what we are.
Police believe they may have found the culprits. A male was questioned at Newcastle Station last night.
Upon searching him, they found a number of spray cans, and those spray cans are currently being analysed, and we hope to link them to the crime scene.
Having taken out one of the country's most prestigious art competitions, the Maitland Art Prize. Leslie Tilley's depiction of an Australian native black boy entitled Kakadu Quilt was depicted by Newcastle Region Art Gallery's Nick Mitsevich as the winner. Highly commended awards went to Stephen Yankovic and Peter Gardner.
This is a familiar experience for motorists along Glebe and St James Road. Between 11 and 11:30 this morning alone, trains brought traffic to a lengthy stop on 3 occasions. A number of options have been considered to reduce road congestion at the crossing and to improve safety after an elderly pedestrian was hit by a train and killed last year. The two preferred by Newcastle City Council were building an overpass for cars to cross the tracks or diverting the road along Park Avenue.
Clearly that level crossing at Adamstown cannot be sustained for the next number of years. We need to separate the vehicles, the pedestrians, the cyclists from the trains.
However, the state government this afternoon announced it would be taking up the third option, upgrading safety of the crossing. That will include new boom gates, protected pedestrian crossings with wheelchair access and a protected road cycleway, all to be built later this year.
I understand that the detailed study has been put forward that involves both the RTA and Rail Corp according to national standards, and this was the design that's been approved.
Commitment to upgrading the crossing effectively ruled out any major steps such as the overpass or road diversion in the short term.
But the longer term solution lies in the two that I've mentioned, I would expect, and that's what we want to press on with very much as well.
Council says motorists can expect even greater delays at the crossing in coming years, with an increase of coal expected from the south to be transported by rail to Newcastle. Todd Nardi, NBN News. Judy Channel has been using asthma medication for around 65 years, and she was quick to volunteer for a little extra as part of the latest treatment trial at the Hunter Medical Research Institute. Researchers have been investigating the use of an antibiotic called Clasid to reduce inflammation in the airways. Previous studies have found people with asthma suffer from different kinds of inflammation.
Current treatments are very effective at treating one kind of inflammation. This new treatment, which is actually an antibiotic, is effective at treating other kinds of inflammation.
The trial involves asthmatics undergoing tests to measure lung function. Volunteers in the program are given antibiotics over 8 weeks, with samples of their sputum analysed regularly to see what effects the drugs have on airway inflammation. And it's passing the ultimate test. After 4 weeks, Judy has already noticed a difference.
I find that the coughing of the phlegm has reduced, and I feel very well in myself.
The Hunter Medical Research Institute is looking for around 50 more asthmatics to volunteer for the trial. In about 18 months, it hopes to announce a successful new treatment.
The airway inflammation is what causes people to have symptoms, wheezing and coughing and things like that. So if we can reduce the airway inflammation, we can then downstream reduce asthma symptoms and therefore improve people's lives.
Todd Nardi, NBN News. For 43 years, the Intercity Pace has easily been Maitland's biggest night at the Trots, and indeed one of the top harness racing carnivals in country New South Wales. The event was in doubt earlier this year due to timetable clashes with the Bankstown and Bathurst clubs. However, the Maitland track has now been given the green light to hold the Intercity Pace final on March the 19th. It's also convinced the club to remain hopeful of holding meets after the June 30 expiry date set by Harness Racing New South Wales.
If we can make this Intercity
as successful as we are pretty confident it will be, then we'll be able to put up arguments, hopefully, that would be hard to deny.
It won't be a traditional intercity pace carnival though. While the $20,000 final will be raced at Maitland, the event's heats have been shifted to Sydney's Harold Park. That's likely to mean a crack field of Sydney trotters for the final and a tougher time for Hunter hopefuls.
Yes, it'll be harder for us to qualify, and when we do qualify, if we do, it's going to be a harder race to win.
Todd Nardi, NBN News.
In the reply to this, on behalf of the Shortland RSL community,
extremely generous donation, Kim. Thank you, Jerry.
For the players and the trainers, it was business as usual this morning. The team carried on seemingly oblivious to the headlines. For management, though, it's a different story. The club is facing one of its darkest hours. Helen O'Neill promotes rugby league and the Knights at a grassroots level, passing on the love of the game to a younger generation. She's shocked by the news.
It's time rugby league stood up, showed that they are serious about cleaning up the game and being positive role models in life and get rid of the people involved.
She, along with many others, are calling for tough action.
And if people can't be responsible, then maybe the step needs to be taken that there's no alcohol while you're away on a trip. Take some hard decisions. Have a zero tolerance policy.
And as far as Novocastrians are concerned, most are outraged.
There's no excuse for that sort of behaviour. And it's a shame. It's a shame for the Knights and it's a shame for the game.
A bit silly. You know, you thought they would have learned the lesson last year, or just the whole rugby league in general.
You'd hope that after everything that's been going on in the previous years, they would have learnt something, and if it has happened, then you question what's being done.
There wasn't much Brian Weathers could do, but wait. Having shot 31 points on Friday night against West Sydney, only Adelaide's Willie Farley could catch him.
I was a little on edge, but I kind of reviewed every shot I missed this year and everything. Oh man, I hope we don't score,
But with a haul of just 13 overnight, the title went Weathers' way at an average of just over 24 points a game. It's defence, though, that the coach pinpoints as the key against Brisbane on Wednesday night. Heading into the elimination playoff with 3 wins from their last 4 outings, the Pirates couldn't be in better condition.
We're in form, we're tough, we're hardened, and I think we're really, really ready to, the preparation couldn't have been better.
It was effectively the start of the A-League soccer season today for the Newcastle Jets. The squad hitting the training park for the first time with a 9-week countdown for their first match in the World Club qualifying tournament, and they were given an idea of what to expect for the season.
I'm a nice bloke off the park, but we're pretty intense on the park, and I think that's the way football's got to be played.
While Richard Johnson will share the same playing number as his old schoolmate Andrew Johns, who watched on today, young English striker Guy Bates will consider numbers on a flight home tomorrow, with the Jets offering him a 3-year deal today.
I'm taking this opportunity now to indicate that a 19-year-old woman has come forward and provided police with a formal statement indicating that she was a victim of an indecent assault in the early hours of Sunday morning. She has provided the formal statement, but she is currently considering her position in terms of the future proceedings. Despite that, we are continuing with an investigation. A strike force has been formed and is working from Bathurst and Sydney investigating the allegation. So on this occasion, we're asking people to remain calm, let the police do their investigation. I understand the debate that will go around what's occurred on the periphery, but we need to be able to interview the witnesses, the victim, and anyone who comes forward with information in a non-threatening environment without impacting on the investigation.
It's hard to recall a trial match that's caused so much interest. Off-field incidents aside, Saturday night's match in Gosford will be the first in 11 months for Andrew Johns, who remains decidedly calm.
I've done all the tackling at training and all the contact work, so I've been in this situation before, I suppose, come back from big injuries, so I think once I'm out there I'll be fine.
To start off the bench, just how long Johns will play is to be gauged on the night, in what will be his lone hit-out before the season. That's when he really wants to hit his straps.
I think I owe the clubs, a little bit, and definitely like to get out there and show some leadership to the players.
That no doubt extends to off-field these days, given recent events. A captain at club, state and Australian level, Johns accepts his leading role isn't restricted to just game time.
Yeah, I think every captain does, every club and every senior player does in the current climate. I suppose it's about looking out for each other and making sure no one steps out of line.
A solid return for him and a strong team performance overall would go a long way towards getting the club season back on track.
Watch number 7 anyway.
You can bet everyone will be. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Originally condemned by councillors in 2003, Surf House has now been given a stay of execution by the current council until they get a further report on the coastal landmark. That's angered the Lord Mayor.
The council had adequate information. There was plenty of information. The history was there. 4 times there's been expressions of interest over the last 10 or 12 years for this building, and none of them have amounted to anything.
The information wanted includes changing the classification of the site to make it viable for redevelopment after Council last night received an 11th hour reuse proposal.
Which would allow Council then to change its status to operational land from community land, which would mean the 21-year lease maximum that we can offer developers now could be increased to, say, 30 or 40 years.
The Lord Mayor isn't convinced the idea can save Surf House.
Now, I phoned one of the people on that list and I said, I see you're involved in this, what's the story behind it? And they said to me, I don't know anything about it.
But Councillor Parsons argues the proposal should at least be investigated.
But I'm told from architects that have been inside the building that the building is not nearly as bad as it's been touted in the media and by people who understandably walk past and think it's going to fall over.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
The Open girls joined the boys at the home break of Surfest today at Newcastle Beach, and given the solid conditions, you could understand why most couldn't wait to hit the water. Plenty have described Sydney's Jessie Miley-Dyer as the next big thing, and the way she commanded things today, it was easy to see why. Having already won a World Qualifying Series event in Peru and 3 pro teams this year alone, the 18-year-old arts law student shot into tomorrow's first semi-final. That's where she'll meet Queenslander Tara Christie. The other 2 surfer semi will feature Nicole Atherton, who progressed through, as did Lindsay Noyce. Giant-killing 15-year-old Owen Wright continues his incredible run in the boys, reaching the 16s final while remaining alive in the 20s as well, where he's a chance to star in that decider also.
Wine has put Pecolbin on the map, but just over the hill, the Broke Forditch area is rapidly expanding its reputation for producing quality harvests. There are now 60 vineyards in the region. 16 brands showed off their wares today at Spirit of the Vines.
You get probably a more discerning type of taster because they're looking for different things and you don't see these wines everywhere.
They may not be as mainstream, but there are still international award-winning titles produced locally, and after a bumper season, there may soon be more accolades.
We've had a great vintage, yeah, one of our better ones, I think. Yeah. It was a little bit of rain, but we tended to miss it out here. So, yeah, we've had a great year.
Also benefiting from kinder weather conditions is the honey industry. Morpeth had a beautiful day today for the annual Honey Festival, with plenty of people using the opportunity to stock up on produce.
Because the price of honey's come right down after all the bushfires and the drought, there's been good supplies of honey, so honey's very reasonable price these days.
As well as showcasing the diversity of the golden stuff, the Honey Festival provides an educational experience for both young and old. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.